They laughed when they saw the rifles. Old, rusted, forgotten, the Marines were ready to throw them away, until an old veteran, quiet and unseen, stepped forward. What happened next didn't just restore broken weapons, it restored something far more dangerous: to lose respect. Before we begin this story, take a moment and tell us, where are you watching from today? And if you believe silent heroes deserve to be remembered, please subscribe. Now, let's begin. The first rifle hit the metal bin with a hollow, disrespectful clang. Rust flaked off the barrel like dead skin. The scope dangled loose, cracked glass catching the harsh white light of the armory. A young Marine snorted, shaking his head as if the weapon itself had personally offended him. "Scrap it," someone muttered. "It's useless." No one noticed the old man standing near the doorway at first. No one noticed how his shoulders stiffened at the sound. No one noticed how his eyes, faded but sharp, locked onto the rifle as if it had just screamed a name only he could hear. That rifle had once spoken for men who never came home, and now it was being thrown away like trash. The veteran did not raise his voice. He did not step forward immediately. He stood still, hands clasped behind his back, posture instinctively straight despite the years weighing down his spine. His jacket was plain, his boots worn but polished with habit, not inspection. A maintenance badge hung from his chest, civilian armory technician, the kind of title no one looked twice at. The Marines barely spared him a glance. To them, he was background noise. To the rifles, he was memory. As another weapon clattered into the bin, something tight and old twisted inside his chest, not anger, not pride, but grief. These weren't just rifles. They were promises that had once kept men alive. His name was Elias Crow. 42 years earlier, Elias had carried one of those rifles through wet jungle air that smelled of rot and cordite. He remembered the way the metal bit into his palm during long overwatch hours, the way oil and sweat mixed into a scent that never truly washed off. He had been a sniper once, quiet, patient, invisible. He had learned to listen to the world breathe, to feel wind brush against his cheek and know how far a bullet would drift, to wait hours, sometimes days, without moving more than his heartbeat allowed. He remembered the men who trusted his silence, men who whispered jokes they wouldn't live to finish, men whose names he still spoke in his sleep. When the war ended, it didn't really end. It just followed him home. The ringing in his ears never left. His hands sometimes shook in the mornings. And there were nights when he woke up reaching for a rifle that wasn't there, heart racing, lungs burning with ghosts of humidity and fear. He never talked about it. When his knees finally gave out and his eyesight softened, he took the armory job. Not for money, not for purpose, but because it kept him close to the steel that had once carried so much weight, moral, human, unbearable weight. These rifles had histories, and Elias remembered every one of them. The Marines gathered around the bin now, laughing lightly, relieved to be rid of the outdated weapons. "Why are we even keeping this junk?" one said. "Museum belongs somewhere else." Their voices weren't cruel. That somehow made it worse. They spoke with the casual certainty of people who had never needed something old to work perfectly to survive. The officer in charge, a young lieutenant with crisp lines and polished confidence, nodded along. Regulations were regulations. The rifles didn't meet current standards. End of discussion. No one asked why they still existed. No one asked who had carried them. Elias watched silently as another rifle was lifted, its stock chip, bolt stiff from neglect. His jaw tightened. He could almost feel the trigger under his finger again. Almost hear the slow count of breathing. Public disrespect didn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looked like efficiency. 5. Escalating tension and silent resistance. Elias cleared his throat. The sound was small, almost swallowed by the room. "Sir," he said quietly, addressing the lieutenant, "may I try something before you scrap them?" The Marines turned, surprised more than annoyed. The lieutenant hesitated. The old man didn't look threatening, didn't look impressive. He looked tired. The lieutenant began. Elias nodded once. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. "I understand," he said. "Just one." Silence stretched. Something about the way the old man stood, still, respectful, unyielding, made the lieutenant pause. 5 minutes, the officer said finally. "That's it." Elias stepped forward. His hands moved differently now, slower, careful. But when he picked up the rifle, something ancient clicked back into place. He stripped it gently, cleaned away rust like uncovering bone. adjusted the scope with fingers that remembered millimeters better than names. The Marines watched, some with curiosity, some with mild amusement. No one spoke. The room smelled faintly of oil again. 6. Unexpected power shift. Elias took the rifle to the test range. He lay prone, joints protesting, breath steadying despite the years. The world narrowed. Wind, distance, stillness. He squeezed. The shot landed dead center. A second round followed. Then a third. All perfect. A murmur rippled through the Marines. Elias didn't smile. He simply adjusted the scope and handed the rifle back. These weren't broken, he said softly. They were forgotten. The lieutenant swallowed. Orders were quietly revised. The scrap bin was rolled away. And the rifles, every last one, were restored. One Marine whispered later words that spread through the unit. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it means discipline. Another said, respect isn't loud, it's precise. And Elias, when thanked, only replied, they worked because they were built with care. Same as the men who carried them. Weeks later, the rifles were issued again, for training, for honor, for memory. The Marines stood straighter around Elias now. They didn't laugh, they listened. At a small, quiet ceremony, the lieutenant shook the old man's hand, not as a favor but as acknowledgement. No applause. Just understanding. Some battles aren't fought with bullets. They're fought with patience, with memory. With the courage to stand quietly when the world rushes past. Old things aren't useless. Sometimes they just need someone who remembers why they mattered. If this story moved you, tell us. Where are you watching from today? Share your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe for more stories that honor the silent heroes history almost forgets. Because respect should never be thrown away.